Episode 10, Too Sweet. We are so glad that you have enjoyed our weekly podcast of Side Quest. We hope that you continue to listen and enjoy the exciting world of the Land of Sojourn. Quote for the episode, CNN Special Report, Digital Predators, The Dark Side of Gaming. Interview with Walter Chen, leading gaming security analyst. Conducted by Travis Scott, 2019. Travis Scott, keep your friends close but your enemies closer. A quote famously delivered by Michael Corleone in The Godfather Part 2, though originally derived from Sun Tzu's Art of War. Walter, how does this ancient wisdom apply to the current situation in Land of Sojourn? Walter Chen, adjusting his glasses? The parallel is frighteningly apt, Travis. In Land of Sojourn, we're witnessing something unprecedented. 3 player-killing guilds, also known as PKers, that have managed to operate within the game's technical rules while pushing moral boundaries to their limits. The Crimson Reapers, Shadow Syndicate, and Nightshade Executioners have created what we call a terror triangle. Travis, let's focus on the Crimson Reapers. They seem to be the most notorious of the 3. Walter, leaning forward. The Crimson Reapers are fascinating from a psychological perspective. Their leader, who goes by Char, short for Carbroiled, has created what I'd call a digital cult of personality. Their guild symbol, a blood-red scythe, has become something of a calling card that strikes fear into players' hearts. It looks like a one-handed Grim Reaper scythe, but covered in blood. Travis, you've studied their methods extensively. What sets them apart from typical griefers or player killers? Walter, gravely. What's truly disturbing is their methodology. This isn't random violence. It's calculated psychological warfare. They've elevated player killing into a perverse art form. They stalk their targets for days, sometimes weeks. They send messages, leave warnings, isolate their victims from their allies. By the time they actually strike, the target is often already mentally broken. Travis, yet they've managed to avoid any official bans. How is that possible? Walter, showing documents on tablet. That's what makes them truly dangerous. They operate in gray areas, exploiting loopholes in the game's code. Unlike other guilds that break explicit rules, the Crimson Reapers understand the system well enough to bend it without breaking it. Their leader, Char, is rumored to have a background in game design, which might explain their sophisticated approach. Walter leaning in to add more of an emphasis. Char, so short for Charbroiled. Travis, what can you tell us about Char? Walter, Char is not a good person. She pretends to be, but her real nature is unforgiving savage, with no real loyalty other than to herself. She kills and helps others be killed with brutal efficiency. She most likely is not successful in the real world and earns for the luxuries that only the game can give. Travis, how do they get around being banned? Walter, they are smart in how they do it. They don't do solo kills usually. They attack in packs and don't let one person always to the killing. Players are always allowed to defend themselves, and player killing, or called peeking, is allowed to some extent. They also don't kill more than allowed until they get banned. Travis looking a little unsettled. There are rumors about the real identities of these players. What can you tell us about that? Walter, shaking head. That's perhaps the most troubling aspect. These aren't teenagers acting out or typical trolls. Based on our analysis of their behavior patterns and communication styles, we're likely dealing with highly educated, sophisticated individuals who have found an outlet for darker impulses in this virtual world. The level of organization and psychological manipulation suggests real-world experience in leadership and strategy. Travis, sounds like these digital predators are bringing real-world skills into virtual hunting ground. Walter, exactly. And that's what makes them so effective and so concerning. The virtual world hasn't created these tendencies. It's simply provided a new arena for them to flourish. The question we should be asking is, what happens when people who perfect these skills in games decide to apply them back in the real world? Camera pans back to Travis in studio. Travis Scott, disturbing insights into the dark side of virtual worlds. Coming up after the break, are your children safe in online games? Expert recommendations every parent should hear. This is Travis Scott, reporting for CNN Special Reports. End segment.
Episode 10, Too Sweet. In the land of Sojourn, where death meant more than just respawning, the Crimson Reapers had carved their legacy in digital blood. Unlike the honorable guilds that populated the server, they found joy in the terror they spread, treating player killing as an art form. Guildmaster Char sat across from Crimson, beside a crackling campfire, her avatar's flowing red hair catching both the dancing flames and the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon. She would look beautiful with her flowing red hair, given the additional animation of fire added to her hair. If you knew her in real life, she was a portly woman with dark black hair, boils, and a lot of upper lip hair. The morning's mist curled around their feet as the stars slowly faded from the virtual sky. Her perfectly sculpted features curved into an ecstatic smile as she examined the legendary Fire Phoenix necklace that Crimson had brought as tribute. The artifact seemed alive in her hands, its golden chain supporting a pendant of pure ruby that pulsed with an inner flame. Ancient runes of power traced its surface, promising unlimited fire potential and the ability to regenerate both health and mana. "Oh, Crimson," she purred, her voice dropping to a seductive whisper as she lifted the necklace to her throat. "You do know how to please a woman." The moment she clasped it around her neck, her flowing red hair erupted into living flames, her green eyes blazing with newfound power. The campfire roared in response, and her entire form seemed to radiate heat. "So Tron found the Hammer of Sojourn first," Char mused, her fingers tracing the rim of a steaming cup of morning tea. The rising sun cast long shadows through the morning mist, creating an ethereal backdrop to their meeting. "After all your careful planning, all your meticulous preparation, some nobody stumbles across the most powerful mythic weapon in the game." She leaned forward, her green eyes glinting with malicious intent, reflecting the dying embers. "Tell me, Crimson, how does it feel to know you were so close, to have victory slip through your fingers like sand?" Crimson shifted uncomfortably on his log seat, the morning dew soaking into his elaborate armor. The Crimson Guard, once considered among the top 3 guilds in Land of Sojourn, had been saved by lost souls in their failed attempt to secure the hammer. It was almost within Crimson's grasp, but he didn't know the knights would be so formidable and smart. "Thank you for letting me know about the knights. It would have also been helpful to also tell us how freaking smart they were too," Crimson defended, his voice mixing with the crackling fire. "Tron saved the day, as if he had some inside knowledge." His voice trailed off. The morning air grew colder as Char's expression darkened, contrasting with her now flame-wreathed form. Small flames danced between her fingers as she tested her amplified abilities. "With this, I could burn entire guilds to ash." Her laughter, both alluring and terrifying, echoed through the morning mist. "Inside information?" she repeated, a dangerous edge to her voice. The campfire flared suddenly, casting menacing shadows across her face. "Are you suggesting someone within your ranks betrayed you, or perhaps—" She paused, letting the implication hang in the misty air. "Someone in mine?" "No, of course not," muttered Crimson. "It just appears odd, does it not, at their efficiency," he said as he looked down. Char laughed and spoke dismissively. "I heard you placed your portals right into the action, causing most of the players to be taken out as soon as they teleported in." She touched his nose with a little bop. Crimson just sat in awe as Char paced around him. "Such poor planning," she whined. Suddenly, Char thrust her hand toward a distant tree. A column of fire, far more intense than any normal spell, reduced it to ash in seconds. The necklace pulsed with each display of power, and Char's health and mana bars remained completely full, no matter how much energy she expended. "I'll make you a deal, Crimson," she purred, placing a delicate burning hand on his shoulder. Her touch, though gentle, carried the weight of a death sentence. "Do you want us to help you go after Tron and get you the hammer?" She paused, conjuring a phoenix made of pure flame that circled above their heads, I could help you for a price. From the surrounding forest, Char's personal guard emerged silently, their blood-red armor glowing in the early morning light. Each bore the guild's signature mark, a burning scythe, and carried weapons that had ended countless players' virtual lives. One of them, bolder than the rest, spoke up. "My lady, what about the server admins?" Such power might draw their attention. Char's laugh was like breaking glass. "Let them come. With this necklace, I'm practically untouchable." She turned back to Crimson, her expression softening into something perhaps more dangerous than her anger. "You've given me such a wonderful gift. Now watch what I do with it." She raised both hands to the sky, and the campfire erupted into a massive pillar of flame that seemed to pierce the heavens themselves. The dawn sky turned blood red from her display of power, her hair now a writhing mass of living flames that danced in sync with her emotions. Crimson watched, both amazed and terrified, as Char's avatar seemed to grow more magnificent and terrible with each passing moment. The necklace had transformed her from a feared guild leader into something approaching a deity. In that moment he realized he might have given too much power to someone who already danced on the edge of madness. "The lost souls think they're champions now," she continued, her voice dripping with contempt. As she spoke, her personal guard formed a circle around them, their armor now gleaming with reflected flames. The morning mist had completely evaporated, replaced by a shimmering heat haze that distorted the forest around them. "My lady," one of her guards interjected cautiously, "perhaps we should focus on Tron himself? The hammer of Sojourn in his possession makes him a priority target." Char's fiery display dimmed slightly as she considered this, her flames settling into a more controlled burn. "Speak your thoughts," she commanded, turning her attention to the guard. "If we could corner him, separate him from his guild, we might be able to take the hammer," the guard suggested, his armor reflecting the dancing flames of Char's hair. Crimson shook his head, his expression grave. "It's not that simple. Tron, he's different. I've seen him fight. He doesn't just have skill, he has an intuition that borders on precognition. Even with your new powers, my lady, confronting him directly could be problematic." Char's eyes narrowed, the flames in her hair flickering with irritation. "You sound afraid, Crimson." "Cautious," he corrected. "And there's more. Have you heard about Mercurius?" This caught Char's attention. "The new player? What about him?" "He's not just new, but apparently the friend of the Adventure Guild's leaders. Even Osiris is his friend. He was just seen in a SoTube clip as he's acquired a mythic-level sword, between him and Tron." Crimson let the implications hang in the air. Char was silent for a long moment, her fingers absently tracing the phoenix necklace. Finally she spoke, her voice carrying a reluctant note of agreement. "Perhaps you're right. Tron has proven surprisingly capable, and if Mercurius has indeed obtained such a weapon—" She stood pacing around the fire, two mythic weapons in the hands of potential allies. "This requires a more strategic approach." "My sources say Mercurius and Tron have not even met," Crimson added. "If they decide to work together—" Firelight danced across the gathered faces, casting long shadows through the ancient forest. Heat radiated from Char's form as she stood before the makeshift council, her presence making the campfire seem dim in comparison. "Then we need to be smarter," she declared, her voice cutting through the night air like frost, despite the warmth she emanated. "Very well. We'll watch, we'll wait, and we'll plan. Sometimes the patient hunter catches the greater prey." Her gaze swept across her guards, who stood at attention among the towering trees. "Spread the word. I want every detail about Tron's movements, and find out everything you can about this sword Mercurius carries. Knowledge for now will be our weapon." Crimson shifted on his fallen log seat, the leather of his armor creaking as he rose. Pine needles crunched beneath his boots as he motioned to his guards. "Let's move." He offered Char a courteous bow, the firelight catching his movements. "Always a pleasure." As he turned toward the darkness of the forest path, a thought stopped him. "Did you happen to watch the video on SoTube about Mercurius?" Before Char could respond, Jacob, her dark sentinel, emerged from the shadows. His black armor seemed to swallow the firelight, the symbol of their guild on his chest, catching occasional embers. His accented voice carried an underlying current of aggression. "We watched it many times," he practically hissed. "Do you know who these black strangers are?" Crimson pressed. Quebec stepped forward, her minimal armor reflecting the flames in ways her fully armored companions did not. Her French accent drifted through the night air. "No," she purred. "They are quite the player-killer, if we must say. It would be fun to have them around, or to learn why they are around." "You were there, Crimson. What can you share about those dark strangers?" pressed Char. "Only that they appeared more NPC than player," Crimson reported, rather pensive. Char listened rather inquisitively. "More NPC than player. Aye. Interesting." With a quick, dismissive nod to Crimson, Char and her crew melted into the shadows of the forest. The delegation dispersed into the darkness, leaving only the crackling fire behind. Once they were well away from the meeting site, Crimson's lieutenant, Gratis, released a shuddering breath. "They freak me out more than any evil creature," he confessed. "Why do we work with those things?" Crimson sighed heavily, leading his 4 guards down a moonlit path toward a clearing. "Because that lady is so scary that if she was on her own, this game would burn to the ground. At least we get to point her at where she plunders." The group fell into uneasy silence as they approached a guild member maintaining a portal, its blue light casting an ethereal glow through the misty forest air. Before stepping through, Crimson turned for one final survey of the shadowy woods. A cold shiver ran down his spine, unbidden and unwelcome. In the darkness between the trees, he could have sworn he saw a figure, darker than the shadows themselves, watching them. "I know how you feel," he finished hastily, ushering his group through the portal before whatever lurked in the darkness decided to make itself known. In her captured castle, leagues away from the forest meeting, Char sat brooding. The fate of their prisoners remained a mystery to most, and she preferred it that way. One of her silent observers, who had remained quiet throughout the earlier exchange, finally spoke. "Claire," he said, using the name she bore in another world. "I mean, Char." It was Noah, a player whose true identity was just as carefully guarded as their own. Char looked at Noah, or Erd, as he was known in-game. His massive orc frame contrasted sharply with the reality of the man who controlled him, a brilliant strategist bound to a wheelchair in the real world. "Yes, Erd?" she said, noting the unusual tension in his voice. "These dark strangers, they're different from regular PKers," Erd began, his deep voice unusually quiet. "I've been watching them. They walk among the cities like they're searching for something specific. Their movements are too coordinated, too purposeful." He shifted uncomfortably. "Yesterday I saw one outside the Adventure Guild, just standing there, completely motionless. An hour later, that Mercurius incident happened. But here's the strange part. When I checked the logs, there was no player entry or exit recorded during that time." He leaned forward, his tusked face caught in the torchlight. "The video of Mercurius taking one down has gone viral. Over 100 million views on Two Turnt Thomas's SoTube channel. It's made him an overnight celebrity, even though we both know he's far from being a top player. But something doesn't add up. I've reviewed that footage frame by frame. The stranger, it seemed to glitch just before Mercurius landed the killing blow. Almost like..." "Like what?" Char pressed, intrigued. "Like it wasn't supposed to die, like something in its code broke." A heavy silence fell between them as the implications hung in the air. If these weren't regular players, What exactly were they hunting in their game? A smile played across Char's lips, one that never quite reached her eyes. It was the same smile that had become legendary among their victims, the last thing many saw before their digital lives were shattered. She turned to face her lieutenant, and that benevolent smile grew wider, more predatory. "Erd," she purred, her voice carrying both warmth and menace. "Feel like going on a hunt?" The chamber seemed to darken with anticipation of what would follow, as two of the most feared players in Land of Sojourn began plotting their next victim's downfall. Call a clan meeting and let everyone know the stranger hunt. It's begun.
Stay tuned for the next episode, 2 Turnt Thomas.